So good afternoon, good evening. It's getting a bit wet and cold and dark over here anyway now, but number 21 on the Let's Talk Business Coaching. And there's a reason for the theme for this event. And I think Gareth will explain more as we go along, I sense, as we were sort of texting over the weekend. But anyway, and it's that staying positive. And what I meant by that is probably two things: is when the economy can be down or things are going on, there's a lot of negativity around, how as coaches do we stay positive and upbeat and bright, but also when stuff happens in our personal lives. We're all sort of on stage with our clients and highly visible. Stuff happens behind the scenes, good, bad, or indifferent. And when there's negative stuff there as well, how do we get back up on stage or with the client and keep them up and in the moment? So it's really that sort of, how do we stay positive, techniques and tools and mindsets that go with it. But Gareth, I know you've got a backstory to this one, but give us a flavour. How was your weekend?
Well, it was all right until the end. So I was driving home from London on Sunday, and I broke down. And what happened was that I started the journey, and a warning light came on, and I thought, okay, well, that's a problem, but not a real problem. So I thought I'll just see how far I can get. And then kind of halfway home, almost, I lost acceleration. So I had to pull over to the side of the road, and then I kind of cooled the engine, and I could go again, but only for about a mile. Then I stopped, then I went a mile, then I started and thought, right, I can't deal with this anymore. So I phoned the recovery people, and so the first person that came out, he said, because I was on the side of the motorway, he said, well, I'm not here to look at your car. I'm just a safety tow. I'm just to get you to safety. So all he did was took me to the next services. Right. So then his mate he couldn't fix it, and I knew he couldn't fix it. So then he said, well, I can't tow you, so you're gonna have to wait for another tow. So what's interesting is that the first person who towed me came out again. So this was the second thing. So it was the same guy. So he said, right, we're gonna get you back to Exeter. This is great. We'll take you home. Brilliant. And then he got a call, and what he said was, I only heard part of the conversation, but what he said was, no, we're already past those services. And then he said, okay, I'll have to drop him at the next services, right? So he came off the phone. He was like, I'm really sorry. I'm not taking you home. I'm only taking you to the next services. So I was like, right, okay. So he dropped me in the coach park of the next services, which was very dimly lit. And by this point, the services was closed anyway. I broke down at about 5, and this was probably at about 10 or 11, somewhere around there. And he said, but don't worry. It's that I know where the next guy is. He's only half an hour away. So I thought, okay, well, if it's half an hour, I can deal with it. So sure enough, half an hour came and went, and then 45 minutes came and went, and then an hour came and went, and there was no sign of anybody. And so I phoned the recovery people again and said, look, I've just been dumped here. What's happening? And they said, oh, the next tow will be with you at 2:16 in the morning, basically. So I'm not proud to admit that a little bit of my high D personality came out at that point.
I'm not surprised.
And I did let the operator kind of have it a little bit. He got to me around 2 o'clock, and then and by this point my car battery was dead, so I didn't have the radio. The services was so it was just like dead time, basically. And so he got to me at about 2ish, and eventually I got home about 3:30 in the morning, which was just soul destroying, I think.
What was the problem with the car? I mean, it wasn't just like a blown fuse or something, was it?
Still waiting to find out, but something to do with the catalytic converter, I think, is the problem. So yeah, it was. I wasn't happy.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. The reason for that strange cryptic message I sent you when you sent the picture through was because we had the same thing happen on the way down from the UK in the car. and all the warning lights came on. So there's, oh my God, what's happened? And it came up as being the particulate filter and the traction control set, or whatever, something all flashed along. Right. And luckily, because I was about to like just sell the car and just trade it and scrap it, as you do. And Lynn said, well, she was Googling stuff. She said, oh, just check the fuel cap. So what do you mean the fuel cap? What do you mean? You excuse me, Claudia, but what do you know about the car, for God's sake? I'm a bloke, as you do. Sorry. Anyway, she said, well, there's a thread. And apparently when you put the fuel cap back on the cars, it doesn't seal properly. It doesn't give the right pressure or something. And that in itself can trigger all these different warning lights. So all I did, I refitted the fuel cap, but it was fine. So I just literally, and it's happened again. So we've got a new fuel cap coming now, and it's absolutely fine. But the garage said it's $2,500 to replace it. It's like flipping heck, or not the fuel cap, the catalytic and the filter. So anyway, that was hence my cryptic message, but obviously it wasn't that.
Yeah, it wasn't that. I checked that. It wasn't that. No, no. So it was pretty difficult to stay positive, actually.
I think it was, yeah. But this is a good sort of case study.
It was pretty difficult to not let my kind of high D take over.
Absolutely, well. But there's a limit, isn't there? How far you can sort of push people until they do snap or whatever it is, the pressure takes over and where you go. And I guess if you're obviously knowing your background, that has to be reasonably high for you. There's a tolerance zone, if you like, but also you have to be able to use when the pressure is on, and you do sort of use you've got to be able to flip out and use it positively as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm pretty good at not letting my D take over, if I'm honest. But there are points, and what I always, I used to teach leadership and management in the forces, and I always say there's a time and a place for your authoritativeness to come out. Yeah. It's not every moment, and I try and live by that. I just think, at 1 a.m, in a poorly lit motorway services somewhere on the M5. I did kind of, but what I was saying was, all I said was, look, just don't lie to me now. Like, if it's going to be 10 hours, tell me it's going to be 10 hours. If it's going to be in half an hour, I don't want it. You say half an hour, and in half an hour I'm still here. That's what I don't want. Exactly. And and they're very well trained to do it. And I really feel for them, because it's not their fault. No. But at that moment, they are the face of the AA for me. Absolutely, yes. So the voice even of the AA. And at that time, I kind of didn't care about what they thought. I just cared about.
So when they send the email through, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it you're going to refer us to any?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the feedback email. I am, because the stupid system where a towing truck will only take you so far, and then you go away for another one, and then you go so far, and then you go away for another one. That's mad. I just think it's absolutely crazy. Just get me home. That's
so you can really mess with their NPS stats when you come back and give them a 1.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, 0. I think, yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
Definitely.
So and as this is obviously a case in point, but stuff happens to us in life, in the business, all that sort of thing. I think 2 things. There's a lot of, and this is going back from the UK as well, speaking to a number of UK clients. There's a lot of uncertainty over in the UK right now, as there is everywhere. And I had a call during the week. It was only on yesterday, crikey. And this person came on and he said, well, the UK, it's really bad. We've got no turkey, no petrol. There's nothing. We can't even get the pigs in blankets, and it's horrible, and everything's bad. And then, and I'm sat there thinking, okay, well, this, I don't think it's true for a start. It's not true. But he's starting from over this side over here, and I'm sort of over here. The challenge is, he's got a lot of evidence he's dug out on this, because he's done his research over the weekend. He's got all this evidence laid out to back up his belief he's got. And I'm starting from sort of scratch. I don't have the evidence to counteract it. How do you handle that sort of thing? I know, because you're with your clients as well, but I know we joke about nothing happens in October.
Yes, I know.
We know that. But how do you counteract that sort of mindset that is not true, but based on their own selected evidence?
Well, I think it's about controlling the controllables. So there's stuff that we can control, and there's stuff that we can't control. A lot of people spend a lot of energy trying to control what they can't control, and I think you're just expending energy, so control. So take my thing on the weekend, okay, so I can't control the tow trucks. Well, what can I control? Well, I can make myself safe and I can make myself warm.
Yeah.
And I can get a cup of coffee. That's a pretty good start. That's a pretty good base, right?
Yeah.
So as long as I can control those bits,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm winning,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same with the economy. It's the same with the macro examples that you gave there about the economy and all that kind of stuff. Is, well, I can't control that. But what can I control? Because I can control my own sales and my own business, right?
Yeah.
I can control that, and I can control my lead generation. So let's do that. And I can control my relationship with my clients, so let's preserve that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all of a sudden, you're in a position where actually you're doing all right.
Yeah.
I'll make a point of being. I think it's, and Kev will kind of back me up here. It's a thing in the forces where at your lowest ebb, at your lowest ebb, I always make a point of cracking a joke, right? And because I just think that changes the whole mood, right? It was really difficult on Sunday night for me to make light of the situation. But when the last tow truck turned up, I was like, I think I said something like, hey, long night for you, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, it's been a long night for you. And I was like, well, what time? And you start to make a joke, and I think I said, look, are you definitely taking me to Exeter? and he said, well, yeah, the truck lives in Exeter. And I said, well, I'm going to sleep on the truck if that's the case, right? And a bit of a laugh in as much as you can have.
Yeah.
I think that changes your whole attitude. I think it physically changes your attitude.
Yes, it's an interesting point, is this sort of the humor. I saw a post from a common colleague of ours, Claudia Neumeister, with the dating agency Lux Dates, and she put a post up on LinkedIn, and it was about humor, sense of humor. Is it a very attractive trait of people, which is a good job in my case. But I think, it's one of those things, if you can find humor, not being funny, but humor, or just a relaxed edge to it, it takes away certainly the anger and the fear to a certain extent. And I think it happens with clients as well, doesn't it? If you can find some humorous point to defuse the situation to a certain extent. Because with this person yesterday, he was saying how bad everything was. I just said, well, that's it. Obviously, you're completely screwed. Send me the keys, and we'll just shut the place down, and you can go off to Marbella. And that was it. And he smiled, didn't he? But no, well, the guy's not that bad. It's all okay. And then we come back up to level a little again. So again, I find humor even in some of the darkest situations, and it can be, if it's used appropriately, can be very, very helpful. It gets rid of the ghosts and the fears as well. So, and actually, we've got the tri-service representation here, haven't we? My goodness, because we've got the Air Force, the Navy, the Army as well. So yeah, so we can talk about that from a military perspective as well. But I do find, humor, we're in the right timing, right place, can be good. But also for us, I think, it's good for us to have a bit of lightness, because I don't know what's happened to you guys before this call or before this weekend or whatever it was. It's how do we keep ourselves up when, all around us is losing their heads, and there's a poem there somewhere, I think. Do you have any sort of patterns, rituals, habits for you to keep yourself up when the dog's exploded and you're on a call with your top client? They don't want to know about your dog exploding, whatever it is. But how do you keep yourself up onto top game?
So I call it a condor moment. So it's a time when I, not literally, but I lift myself out of my body and just like take a look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Right. And then as soon as I've done that, great, back into the room.
Yeah.
And then I've changed my mindset. I've changed my attitude, I think. And as soon as I can see the bigger picture of, okay, things aren't that bad, then you tend to be okay. There's all you can do your thankfulness and gratitude and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure it does actually all help. But I think having something physical that you trigger is a really powerful thing to do.
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think this sort of this condor moment, as you say, showing your age now a little bit, but yeah, but it's or showing my age anyway.
Showing your age.
Yeah, thanks very much. But I think it's that what I find as well. Sometimes you can have a if I can go into state, and I mean that into a coach mode or whatever you want to call it, regardless of what's happened. And this happens when we're doing, I think, a workshop or a seminar or a coaching call, whatever it is. I know if that bloke, that coach guy, Dave Holland, turns up and does his thing, it's going to be okay. So I have to be able to allow him to be there. And that's going into, state to a certain extent. It doesn't happen very often that I have to physically, think about it and go into state. 99 times out of 100, life is pretty good. We're okay. It's just part of the flow. But I find knowing how to trigger that state is a real gift, and I don't know exactly how I would explain to do it. For me, it's just a mindset thing. Going into, I'm Dave Holland, the coach now, and off we go. And it does happen from time to time, but recognizing that positive state is probably a good one, I think, as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is where the humor comes in, the laughter comes in, because laughter is a very positive thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember once a few years ago now, I was the first one to a car crash, and there was lorries overturned, and the car had spun but was now righted and all that kind of stuff. And I opened the door, and there was an elderly lady in there, and in a horrendous situation with smoke coming out and all sorts, and lorry bits
of her or the car.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yeah. And I think my first words to her were you taking a shortcut? Yeah. And I saw her smile, and I was like, right, okay, so now we've done that. Let's find out if there's actually, I mean, I dragged her out and broke her hip, so I'm not sure if there's a balance there. But
you broke her hip while you were dragging her out.
Yeah, but she's alive, so
yeah, well, exactly. That's a good thing. She can't walk, but she's alive. That's good. It's great.
There was a risk of explosion, and that's my story.
Yes, of course. Yes.
But yeah, having that humor, I think, is huge. There's a great scene. I'm a big fan of Sharp, and there's a great scene where Sharp and his sergeant are completely surrounded in a kind of strong.
Oh no! Oh, he's back. You're back. Oh.
Hold and give him a cup of tea. Oh, hello. Yes, no, they're completely surrounded, and there's no hope of a rescue or anything like that. And Harper hands him a cup of tea, and he says, "Well, it could be worse." He's like, "How could it be worse? We're surrounded. We're going to die." I mean, well, we could be without the cup of tea.
Yeah, but
I think that's a huge. Yeah,
always look on the. Always look on the bright side. Always look on the bright side.
Definitely.
But I think this, so humor is a great technique. I genuinely don't think it's just a British thing. I mean, there is this. I mean, Claudia can probably comment better than any of us on this one, I think now. But there is this sort of, I don't know, this myth, I think, about British humor and comedy, and I get it a lot. I've had it when I do workshops. People say, "Can you tell it ain't a British joke or something?" Well, I'm not sure what a British joke what that means, but humor is one thing. But I think humor it's cross-cultural. I don't think there's any race of people anywhere that hasn't got some sort of sense of humor. You have to be a little bit careful with it. I think the British sense of humor can be very sarcastic and caustic to a degree. So if you're amongst Brits, it's sort of okay, and maybe Australians, but you have to be slightly careful with it. But in principle, it can be a leveler, I think, in just about every culture. I mean, Claudia, is that am I sort of on the right track there? Is it broadly the same?
I believe so. Yeah, I think we need to make a distinction though about good-natured humor and humor at the expense of somebody.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that the humor that works is the one where you don't take yourself too seriously, maybe, and just have this kind of fly on the wall view of something and take yourself out of this emotional, reactive potential thing, but just look at it like from outside. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Right? No, but truly bringing a little bit of levity to a situation is great to diffuse it. And I think that we change state. right?
Yeah.
Because I firmly believe that we cannot be in a negative and a positive mind state at the same time. It's just not possible. And that's incidentally also why a practice like an attitude of gratitude and so on, even if you just focus on the little things like the cup of tea you mentioned, Gareth, is really powerful, because that opens again a more positive view of the world rather than being stuck in this problem space. I mean, we all know that in solution focused brief therapy or solution focused coaching, you really make this very strong distinction between problem space and solution space. And I think solution space is a positive space, and problem space is a more negative space, right? One is the away from space, and the other one is the towards to space. So I think that also what Gareth said about this condor moment of just getting up there and seeing the whole thing. When you see the whole thing, you're in solution space. You see whatever situation, you see it from the perspective of how it fits into the grander scheme of things. And the grander scheme of things, because we design it, by design it is positive. It is where we're heading. The vision is there. The concrete goals are there. So I really think that that is important. For you, incidentally, Gareth, it was to center yourself before an interaction or a meeting or a coaching session. For me, it's a little bit the same. I do purposefully before a session center myself, and for me, it's the way I feel it also physically is by a level of energy, because when I coach, it's the moments where I really do get into flow, and it's my absolute favorite moments ever. You know, and that holds pretty much true for all my coaching sessions. And maybe it's because I get completely out of my own head, who knows? And so I do this because I do remember the really great exchanges I have had in coaching sessions. I anticipate that it's going to be that way. And I leave everything at the door. And I always wear a hat, right? But in that moment, I literally put on the coaching hat. And it's a matter of professionalism. I think we do go and we practice that. I really think it is something that truly competent coaches know how to do, and practice it enough that they can pull it out of the hat, again, a hat thing, when they need to. Right?
But I think we have to. I think it's a great point you make. I think we have to, because sometimes, well, not some, a lot of the times, we don't know what we're going to get. You know, when we speak to a client, we hope we know what they're doing. They may have sent some notes across.
Put out focus sheets.
They may have sent a focus sheet. Or they might, you never know. You never know. Just to give us a heads up, this is where we're going. But on the second, 5 seconds before the call, you don't know what has happened to them, and you don't know what you're going to get. And I think it's this, Claudia, as you say, it's that level of, I suppose, trust. And when we get into this flow, we've got to trust ourselves that we know, even subconsciously, how to behave, how to react, what question to ask, where to guide the conversation. So at least the conversation ends on a high towards level rather than a low away from it may start up to. I think it's just trusting ourselves to do that, because
it does take self-confidence. It does take a certain degree of skill and capability, and that is also something that unfortunately doesn't come after a weekend seminar. That somebody takes to become a coach, if they even do as much, right? So it is something that you practice over and over and over again. And I actually do believe that we practice it because we are not just coaches during those 2 hours in the day or whatever it happens to be. We're coaches 24/7. At least it's for me. And just like an athlete is not just an athlete for those 10 seconds they run the sprint, but is an athlete 24/7 in what they eat, how they sleep, how they behave, how they train, and so on. I think being a coach, you need to have a proper mental routine. And staying positive, really, it's the thing. Does being or aspiring to a positive mental attitude mean that you have moments where you're not positive? No, absolutely not, right? We are humans. We all fall prey to the stupid bias of negativity, right? I think that we aspiring to feed our brain good stuff, having an attitude of gratitude and so on. If something pops up, knowing how to knowing your way of being resilient as well, that you do mind your locus of control, like Garrett says, control the controllable. You sit with it, you acknowledge it as such, and then you do not take yourself too seriously, and you do get out of it, right? Because it's just a blip most usually.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think there's another thing is, certainly when I was going through NLP training, I'm not sure if it's an NLP principle, but it was certainly discussed in the course, which was beware the meta monster.
Beware the meta monster.
Oh, it's frozen now.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was getting so good there. Are you back? Are you back? You froze a couple of seconds there. You nearly got the Dorset Wi-Fi nearly killed us. We're back.
But yeah, beware the message. Take your client earlier. It was like, oh, there's no turkeys for Christmas, or there's nothing on. What I hear people say is,
It must be really.
at the moment, there's nothing on the shelves, right?
Your internet's really.
I'm going to keep quiet.
It's okay. No, he's great.
But
you're right. I think
what I hear people. What I hear people say is, there's nothing on the shelves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Really, nothing.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get any. Nobody. Networking doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Right? Really, because how do networking groups survive? Right? No sales are made at Christmas. Right. Yeah. Well, Christmas is the busiest time for a lot of people, right? So beware the meta monster is a good way of avoiding.
Absolutely, yeah. These are the global generalizations. It's exactly the same thing. Exactly.
Yeah, black and white thinking, catastrophizing. Always beware of words like all.
Yes,
every, always, never. All those ones are like big red flags.
I mean, do you think is it a human condition? Are we sort of hardwired to think in negative terms? I don't know why we would do this, but to make things look worse than they actually are. Is that, we look at the British media, for example, which I avoid like the plague. But if you do see any headlines in the British media, they are just true. Talk about meta. My goodness, there's no Christmas. I think it was Christmas is cancelled or something like this was one of the headlines. Like, really? Just because there's a bit of a slight shortage, maybe of hot dogs or something like that, Christmas is cancelled. But are we wired up, or are humans? Is it a human condition to be attracted to that doom and gloom, to give us an excuse not to do something? Do you think?
Yes, it is. It goes back to primeval times when the tiger was in the long grass.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Nobody ever saw the tiger as an opportunity.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, just so to be avoided at all costs, whatever it was.
And just to add to the British gloom, apparently Greggs have reported staff shortages.
No, well, they reported short staff. They're just very 3'6" now. They're not. They're all dwarfs now. Yeah, but I mean, with people like Greggs, they report a staff shortage in one shop in Sunderland or whatever it is. It becomes a nationwide. You can't get the whatever it is, the bake or something like that. Incredible.
The human trait is to concentrate on the negative.
Yeah.
Because it's the negative that's going to cause you harm.
Yes, yeah, but it also brings. I think the negative, if we're not very careful, brings comfort, because the negative is more certain than the potential positive. Because the negative is in the present, isn't it? We can sort of see it's here and now. We can feel it, taste it, touch it. It's unfortunately safe and secure. When it's future, possibilities. It's not guaranteed. We can't touch, taste, and feel it. Therefore, there's uncertainty about it. We avoid uncertainty. We like the warm, cozy, even if it's negative. We like that sort of that consistency of understanding what's real for us. And I think just observation wise, I wonder that's how we're wired as well.
David, if I can just go in there, the thing is that the positive already exists also now, in parallel with what you see as the negative. It's just that the brain gives you the negative for free.
Yes.
And looking for the positive, the proverbial silver linings and the positive aspects, I really think takes some conscious effort.
Yes.
Right. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't necessarily mean that because now it's negative, the positive is in the future. The positive is here now. It's just not apparent. And because, the negative triggers so easily, I think that gets exploited by media.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah, it sells advertising space, that's for sure. We are triggered by it. But I also see people as well where they have this, and there's a phrase crept in for this sort of toxic positivity, when regardless of what's happening, everything's amazing, everything's glorious, everything's fantastic, and the boats are burning, and everything's fine. We're going to be great. I think there's a danger as well of this toxic positivity being happy all the time, or forcing ourselves to be happy all the time, because Claudia, as you say, I don't think that's a human condition either. We have to have the balance there. But I see this on social media, and there are certain groups out there. I've been invited to certain groups, and I call them the happy clappy brigade, and it's all good. They're very positive people, but they're positive all the time, irritatingly positive through everything. My leg's fallen off, but hey, it's cheaper for shoes now. Well, great. It's just like, I get it, but it's okay to be miffed about things, I think, at some point as well. So avoid the toxic positivity.
Isn't there also a distinction to be made between positivity and positive thinking? Positive thinking is kind of this tendency of using affirmations and so on in order to change state, as a mechanism to change state. The experience I have done with it is that you say this vastly positive affirmation and your brain just goes, yeah, right. It's not believable, right? It's like, and then instead of going positive, you go into resistance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is it just good point? Anybody here that using affirmations? It's one of those, it's a technique in the personal development world, but it's something I don't get it. I don't see it. I think it's these bizarre incantations. But anybody else, just before we start off, anybody using them to good effect? Kev, do you use them at all?
We all do, don't we? Even if we don't know we're using them. Because, you can stand in front of the mirror going, I am the world's best. And the little voice at the end goes, well, no, you're not. That's
exactly.
Yeah, that's the true
right.
affirmation. So we're always using affirmations.
Yeah, but do you attempt to use the positive affirmations that I am I'm on my journey to being a multi-billionaire. I am the journey to being wherever. Do you find those help you particularly, or your clients? Or no,
not me personally. I've changed it a little bit. What I say now is I'll set my day up and I'll say, instead of saying I am, I'll say let's be.
Yes.
Let's be confident. Let's be that.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Phil, anything for you? Something you've experienced at all in your career?
Well, just following off from what Kevin said, last year, one of the last face-to-face events I went to was a film director, Oscar-winning film director, giving a presentation. Well, giving a presentation. And one of the things he said about some actors is that when he's directing people and he wants them to be sad for the camera, he says to them, I don't want you to act sad, I want you to be sad.
Yeah.
And it's what Kev was saying, I'm going to be positive today, I'm going to be this today, I'm not going to act it, I'm going to be it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you need to think about when you're saying, I'm going to be positive today, and you have to be positive, not just act it.
That's a great point. In fact, when we lived over in the US, there was a guy in Vegas who his first name was Oscar, and he was a movie, not direct, whatever, he's in the movie industry, and he changed his name to Winner. So his name was Oscar Winner. It was just brilliant because every time we introduced him, here's Oscar Winner, and he's like, wow, he's here. Anyway, he changed his name to Mr. Winner, and his first name was Oscar. So that was a stroke of genius. So he was being the Oscar winner before he did anything. But there we go. Okay, so in terms of the getting clients up, what would you recommend if somebody you've got a client or a customer, they're not in a great place, something's happened, they built up all this negativity? How do you get them out of it? What's your techniques to get them out of it, or to get them to think more positive, focus on what they can manage, what they can control is a great point. Anything else at all? What other tips, ideas, and experience do you have about getting people out of these dark places?
Get into rapport with them, meet them in their world, and then lead them to your world. Yeah.
Okay, so yes. So just explain how's that work for you in a coaching conversation?
Look at their body language, look at the way they're breathing, look at the way they're speaking, and then match as much as you can that. So you meet them where they are, and then lead. And then you've got to lead, sort of lead their energy up in a little way. I speak a little bit faster to lead them out of the pit that they're in.
So would you, if somebody's in a dark place, whatever it is, the situation, would you go down into sort of initially, collusion and agreement to get that level of rapport, then lift them out of it afterwards?
No, I wouldn't. I'd only dip my toe in it. I wouldn't want to get in there with them because that makes two of us then, doesn't it?
Might drag you down.
It's always been aware of where I am with them.
Yeah.
Because but it is about have an empathy for where they are.
Yes.
Not beating them up for where they are, not making them feel bad about where they are, but actually meeting them there and just gently lead them away from it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and what happens, and again, this is on the same sort of tack now, but let's say you're having a conversation with somebody and the stuff that's happened is not made up, it's real. Something has happened, tragic or otherwise, in their business, their life, their family. The dog has actually exploded. I use that only because that was one of the, I saw Claudia smiling at that. I had that given to me as an excuse. One of my temps was late for work once. On his paperwork, he put the dog exploded, which was genius excuse for not showing up on time. But anyway, something real has happened. Something's happened, and they say, look, this has happened this morning, and it's bad, it's negative, it's tough. You can't just go, well, let's think happy thoughts and reposition. How would you approach that? It doesn't matter what the situation particularly is, but it's a real situation. It's not made up. It's not the media. It's a real situation. And how do you handle that? What are you going to do with that person then to lift them out again?
Well, given that everything that's happened and the situation you're in, what would you love to create it? Mm-hmm. How would you sooner be here? Yeah. Something like that along those lines. Okay. Start flipping it over into something, or I could put myself in their position. No, based on what you said. Just imagine if I'd tell you what you've just told me. Yeah. This was happening to me. This was happening to me. What would you advise me to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they'll always come up with answers, and that starts flipping their mood a little bit.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Great idea. Yeah. Okay, Gareth, any bright tips from from Devon, if your internet's working with
I
us?
think always find out what the lesson is. So what's the lesson here? What are you going to do differently next time? I think is the try and get a positive lesson as well, rather than give up.
Well, you jump off the bridge. We're not going to do that sort of thing. I don't know. Sometimes I've seen this sometimes, but I think it comes back to humor as well. And again, you have to be very careful with this because there are some situations where humor is not appropriate, clearly. But when you have somebody, and I have had this, doesn't matter who with, where stuff happens, the family, the kids, the dog, all this sort of thing. And he went through his whole list of things, and he just looked at me and actually finished the first 10 minutes was him just dumping on me. And I said, well, yeah, but apart from that, what's going well? And he looked at me and he literally said, you bastard, he said. But it lifted the mood. It's just one of those things, because I think Kev, as you said, we can't collude, we can't get down in the trenches with them. We've got to stay that sort of reference point where they can dance around, either they're really happy and glad and great, but we're going to bring them back to a little bit of reality. Very, very sad, we're bringing them back to another reality as well. So maybe humor is probably the theme, I would have thought, at least for some.
Very great quote, actually, Dutch, by a guy who came, I think his name was Dave Dobson. We'll laugh about this one day. Why wait?
There you go. Yeah, there you go. It's a good point, though, isn't it? Yeah, because most things you do, you always look back and you laugh. Or even if it's a negative thing, And this is why I put this story out occasionally on LinkedIn, and we've all got stories like this about the other day I was fired in my career. That was on the day, it was really a bleak, negative, black day. It was like, crikey, job's over, career's over, oh, it's horrible. But in hindsight, within 6 months of that happening, we transformed ourselves, our career, our business. It was great, but it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been fired, and it was totally unwarranted, of course. But still, it was one of what seemed to be a very black, negative day actually turned to be a very positive, pivotal day with the benefit of hindsight. So as you say, we're going to look back on this and thank it at some point in time, which maybe I think you've got to be careful with that as well in the heat of the situation. You don't want to tell people that too early, but the principle's absolutely right, isn't it? Okay. So any other tips for staying positive? Anything about staying in positive state, or is music a thing to keep yourself positive and upbeat as well, or is it reading books or knowledge? What type of things do you what sort of patterns do you have to keep yourself in state?
Something I'm playing with at the moment is I think I showed the above and below the line about the moods on the where you have the moods on the left hand side. When you're in this low energy state, you're down here, and a way of getting out of that is to have a good old dose of LSD.
Careful.
LSD.
Phil's ears are pricked up now. He's liking this conversation.
LSD is laughter, which we've been discussing.
Yeah.
Singing, right? So put on some foot stomping music and sing, and really belt your lungs out to it, or dancing. Now I can't imagine what Gareth would have done in the car park, laughing, singing, and dancing. But dancing can be is a form of movement. So runners are just dancing across the planet, and the idea being that when you do that, what you do is you're taking deep breaths, so you're breathing at a deeper level, and that then slows your brain down, and it also pumps some good feeling hormones into your body. Yeah. So LSD, that's the way to get out of it.
Love it. And it's a point. I sing like an ox. I know that. I'm not going to demonstrate for you, but if I'm sat in the car or somewhere, I will sing. I'll shout out, and it sounds horrible to me. Anybody at the lights, must be horrific, but it does change the state. It does change that level of energy, the breathing, and for me, I find music is a great mood enhancer. Certain types of music. So. Anybody have any favorite music they listen to when they're getting back into state?
Bon Jovi, Queen. So it tends to be rock with me. Rock music. Yeah.
Keep talking. I'm coughing. Keep talking.
Keep talking. Right. Okay. Yeah. Another good thing to do, I think to do possibly. We talk about below the line, aren't we? So when you're down, you're down. But have a rule about it. Have a rule about how long you're going to stay below the line, or how long you're going to allow yourself to stay below the line. I think there's a book called A Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod. He has a rule where he's only allowed to go down there for, I think it's 2 minutes. He was told he had terminal cancer. He was on his way out, and he allowed himself 2 minutes to be down after that news. And then it was like, well, what can I do? And he went into positive mode. I mean, that's ninja at it, and it's brilliant. So yeah.
That's going to.
I think that's hugely important, to allow yourself to be angry, or upset about it. And I agree. Mine's half an hour, by the way. I allow myself half an hour of ranting and crying, and all sort. But after that, I'm done, and I move on. But I do think it's really important to have that time.
Yeah, I think emotions are not good or bad. They're just emotions. They manifest themselves in different ways for us, but we label them anger, sadness, happiness, and fear. But it's just a chemical mix in our minds, and if we start to block any emotion, it blocks other things as well. So I think we've got to allow the emotions to flow. If we label it negative, then we've got to be able to get out of it. I mean, Lynn allows me to have a pity party for like 20 minutes. That's it, right? Get up, we're off again, back on the horse, and away we go. And I remember actually being in the franchise donkeys years ago. There's a forum where coaches could go and put the post of this thing. And there was one particular week I lost, I think 7 clients or something. Something horrific happened in the business, and it was like, oh, and most people came back and said, oh, this is horrific and blah blah blah. And one guy came back and just said, Dutch, that's it, get back on the horse. That was it. Get back on the horse and get on with it. It was like, right, and he was right. Okay, that's it, done. Off we go, and back on the horse. Life is good, and away we go. So I think, yeah, we can, we allow the emotions we label as negative to flow, and then we slow those down and encourage the more positive ones to come in. But emotions are all the same. I think fear and excitement is the same emotion. Depends what you're doing. For some people get excited on a roller coaster. For me, you won't get me within half a mile of one. You won't get me on a roller coaster at all. It's fear. But fear and excitement is the same chemical flowing through the body. It's how we interpret it in our minds. I think emotions have got to be allowed to flow. We give them different labels. Some people love, fear. They love the adrenaline it gives them. They're jumping off a cliff and bungee jumping and this sort of thing. I think they're insane, but that's just me. I wouldn't do it. But so emotions are just labels we give to things that we're able to flow through, I think, as well.
And I think we are coaches, and so as coaches, we can use the same tools that we use with our clients, right? We just do some self-coaching. Things that, are kind of tried and true are reference transformations. You have the situation, you have your view of it, and then you change context.
Yeah.
So my way that what happened or the way I reacted, in which context would it actually be helpful?
Yeah.
And what is the in what context would it be helpful, right?
Absolutely.
Another one would be, what's the goal behind the goal? What is this trying to teach me?
Mm-hmm.
What was really going on here, rather than just this tactical, logistical, in the moment kind of thing? But what is actually the greater thing behind it? Yeah. Another one is just literally to reframe what has happened.
Yeah.
What really has happened there, and look at it from different perspectives. Sometimes when we can do some stuff like, okay, you're super sad, but are you always super sad?
Mm-hmm.
It's there's moments where maybe you're not exactly as sad. So what happens during those moments? What are you thinking? What are you doing? And so on, and then build on that. Right, to make it either more frequent or more pronounced, and then go from there. Otherwise, sometimes, if we're really stuck in a momentary negative thing, we can then go and talk about the past, good stuff in the past. How have we dealt with it in the past? We can think about the vision we have for it in the future. We can think of action items to take, and what are we going to change moving forward based on this experience, and so on. I mean, always get into a different frame of mind, and then build on your strength and go forward. That's kind of it, right? Because what we don't want to do is feed the bad dog.
Yes, that's right.
Did I say that? Yeah, you all know this thing, right? I mean, we have choices to make, and what we can ultimately control is our attitude and our effort.
Yeah.
And so that's where we have to make decisions. And so I use those tools as well. And I play the piano.
And, okay, very good.
So and sometimes when I'm really have too much energy penned up, I can do some quite some auditory damage.
but also I think a little sort of gift I was given some years ago, and it was my dad actually gave me this one, was if you lose your keys or you can't find your passport or whatever it is, and you're late getting to somewhere, or you're late to go on a journey, and he always used to say, well, maybe it's on purpose. Maybe we shouldn't be leaving the house right now. We're avoiding the crane crash or whatever, train crash, whatever it's going to be. And that's an interesting way of looking at things, actually, because rather than getting all wound up and bitter and twisted about losing your keys or getting home at 3:30 in the morning on the back of a low loader, it may be, it's an interesting mindset. Well, actually, this is the better experience than could have been should we have done something else, and that brings a bit of sort of calm back into the situation as well, perhaps.
Yeah, the universe is watching out for us, but we are not necessarily privy to what's happening.
Exactly. Yes, we've got to just go with the flow, which opens up another sort of debate about, fate, and can we design our future, or just walking to it pre-planned and this sort of thing. And that's probably another conversation to a degree, but being a bit deep and philosophical here if we're not very careful. But and I think just as a final point before we sort of wrap it up, I think something that I've experienced only a couple of times in my career, there's 19, 20 years of doing this, is when we find somebody who is and I can't diagnose this, but what would appear to be a clinical depression, or they have a medical condition. I think we have a responsibility to make sure they get the proper medical professional help as well, even if we can't diagnose it. There's a limit to where we can go as coaches, I think, to help people feel a bit better and brighter. If it becomes a pattern of behavior that it can't be shaken out of, then we need to go down probably the LSD route that Kev was saying. But no, make sure they get professional medical clinical help, rather than where we can take them so far as coaches no further, I think, as well.
I think
when I sing Dutch, that's auditory damage.
I've heard. Well, I'm a drummer. That's definitely auditory damage. It's not musical either, so I'll go and bash the heck out of a drum kit. But yeah, same thing applies. But
it does help, doesn't it? I mean, it certainly releases frustration.
Yeah. Okay, good. So, any other final points or questions, thoughts, observations while we're all together? Excellent. So, how about for next week? We use this question around, is it fate? Do we design our fate? Do we walk into fate, destiny, that sort of thing? How much control do we really have? I was given somebody says, if you want to give God, or any God, your God, a laugh, tell her your plans. And that's sort of, are we walking through a predetermined path, or can we design our path? Another bit more philosophical. Maybe for next week, for number 22, we'll cover that one off. So excellent. All right, guys, have a fabulous week. I'll speak to you during the week as we go along. Same time, same channel. Let me just pause recording, and I'll get the event up for next week. See you next week. Have a great week in the meantime.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Bye-bye, everybody. Be positive.